In today's Top 10 video, 10 formerly dead rockers that are still alive and kicking. In at number 10, Aaron Lazar. When the Giraffes were about to break out from the underground in 2005, frontman Aaron Lazar had a heart attack at age 27. And not just any old heart attack, but sudden cardiac death. A quick-thinking girlfriend flagged down some paramedics who brought Lazar back to life with a defibrillator. When discharged from the hospital, Lazar found himself on the receiving end of an implantable cardioverter defibrillator permanently installed in his chest. Warned to avoid overstimulation, Lazar went right back on stage and kept on rocking. Only 3 months later, Lazar's defibrillator kicked on in the middle of a Giraffe set while Lazar kept playing. The Giraffe self-titled effort followed that same year, but the traction seemed to be lost for the band as a whole. The Giraffe soldiered on for a couple more years and a couple more albums until Lazar left the band in 2011. At the time of writing, they're giving it another go. Hopefully they'll find the success that has eluded them for the past decade. Number 9. Don Powell. Between the Beatles of the late 60s and Queen of the early 80s, it can be argued that Slade was the most popular rock band in Great Britain in the 70s. With 12 top 5 UK singles in the early 1970s, Slade was on top of the world. Well, on top of Britain, having never scored a top 10 hit in the United States, when their drummer, Don Powell, had a serious car accident that took the life of his girlfriend. Powell's heart stopped beating twice immediately following the accident, and he suffered such severe head trauma that he was in a 6-day coma with memory problems that linger to this day. So, what do you do to mark the 40th anniversary of the death of your girlfriend and the accident that changed your life? You release an autobiography outlining the events in graphic detail in Look What I'd Done, My Life in Slade. Number 8. Josh Homme. Josh Homme, the lead singer of Queens of the Stone Age, was an underground hero when they broke through to the mainstream in 2002. Soon after, trouble found him in the form of fighting, as he was sentenced to 3 years of probation and a stint in rehab for assaulting the lead singer of the Dwarves in 2004. As opposed to the controversy-seeking Dwarves, the Queens of the Stone Age are a fairly straightforward, talented rock band, having been nominated for multiple Grammy Awards. When not fronting Queens of the Stone Age, Homme is known for his time in the bands Kyrus, Eagles of Death Metal, and Them Crooked Vultures. More known for his staying busy than getting into trouble, it was shocking news to learn that Homme had died in 2010. As opposed to many others on this list, Homme's death stemmed from poorly executed knee surgery. Medical malpractice isn't exactly sex, drugs, and booze, and Homme was luckily revived on the operating table. Number 7. Dave Mustaine. As the original lead guitarist of Metallica, Dave Mustaine was kicked out of the band in 1983 for drinking too much. Getting kicked out of Metallica for drinking too much is quite the feat, but Mustaine went on to a successful career with his own project, Megadeth, for 30 more years. During those years, he drank, did a ton of drugs, became a hero of thrash metal, and then became a born-again Christian. Wait, what? The complication and ever-evolving Mustaine, who by some accounts has gone through rehab over a dozen times, revealed in his 2011 autobiography, Mustaine, a heavy metal memoir, that he indeed died and returned to the land of the living. Details of his brief interlude into the afterlife are vague, and interestingly enough, that wasn't the tipping point that led Mustaine to a conversion to Christianity. That came with a brush with losing the use of his arm, without which he couldn't play the music that helps give his life meaning. 6. Slash. We could have been lazy and basically said the original lineup of Guns N' Roses. Steven Adler has cheated death a number of times, with his reward being stints on the reality show Celebrity Rehab. Izzy Stradlin put himself in a 3-day coma, and Duff McKagan's brush with pancreatitis was described as grave. But it was Saul Hudson, aka Slash, who took his addictions up to the very edge. Slash was such a hardcore drug user that he overdosed, died, then checked himself out of the hospital on the very same day. Since then, Slash has stayed busy, forming Slash's Snake Pit, selling tons of units with Velvet Revolver, and is now on tour with his third solo effort. Want a more detailed description of Slash's years of addiction? Try his 2007 autobiography, simply called Slash. Number 5. Phil Anselmo. Primarily known as the lead singer of the immensely influential metal band Pantera, Phil Anselmo is yet another victim of substance abuse. We almost had to use the word was, because in 1996, Anselmo overdosed after a show and was dead for 5 minutes before being resuscitated. Tensions in the band continued to escalate afterwards, and the group blew apart at the start of the new millennium. Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell went on to form the band Damage Plan, and Anselmo focused on his other band, Down, where bass player Rex Brown would later join him. Anselmo is currently promoting Down's latest album, 4 Part 2, and is known for the defunct Superjoint Ritual, a solo effort, and for being in a slew of other obscure metal bands. Of course, there is a book, this time coming from Rex Brown, who documents the rise and fall of Pantera in the pages of 2013's Official Truth 101 Proof. Number 4. Dave Gahan. Going from one end of the musical spectrum all the way to the other, Dave Gahan has been the lead singer and driving force behind the pop band Depeche Mode for nearly 35 years. Depeche Mode is one of the most popular bands in Western Europe, putting 50 singles and a dozen albums on the UK charts alone. In 1996, Gahan overdosed on heroin and cocaine and for 2 minutes was dead. His recollection of his death? He only saw darkness, and I quote, "It scared the crap out of me." With the usual stories of addiction rounding out Gahan's biography, including one where paramedics nicknamed him the Cat because they'd gone to his house so many times they gave him the gratuitous 9 Lives moniker. Gahan has also tried multiple times to clean up, putting out solo efforts and staying prolific with Depeche Mode, never going more than 4 years without a release. Today, Gahan's health problems are those of the run-of-the-mill 50-year-old, torn muscles and gastroenteritis. Number 3. Ozzy Osbourne. When you think of obscene amounts of drug abuse across a lifetime, the first 2 names that will probably pop into your head are Ozzy Osbourne and Keith Richards. Guess what? Ozzy Osbourne did die in 2013 due to a ATV accident. The story is that Ozzy was hopping around on an ATV when it flipped up and landed on him, breaking 8 of his ribs amongst other injuries. Ozzy recovered to do yet another stint at Ozzfest, staying busy touring to promote new solo efforts, and even reuniting with Black Sabbath to release 13. It seems Ozzy is never far from the spotlight. Ozzy posted online during 2013 that he lapsed back into drug and alcohol habits. Now that Ozzy is 65, maybe he should settle on moderation as opposed to quitting. Besides his reality TV show The Osbournes, Ozzy wrote an autobiography in 2009 titled I Am Ozzy, and the ghostwriter said there was so much material left out there was probably going to be an I Am Ozzy 2. And don't forget Ozzy's documentary, God Bless Ozzy. Number 2. Nikki Sixx. Bassist and songwriter Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue fame was once more well known for his ingesting copious amounts of drugs than his work with the Crue. As outlined in his 2007 autobiography, The Heroin Diaries, A Year in the Life of a Shattered Rock Star, Sixx died in the clutches of addiction in 1987, only to be revived by 2 adrenaline shots. Instead of hiding from this fact, Sixx wrote the Grammy-nominated Kickstart My Heart a year later. Not only does it seem that Kickstart is more popular today than it was when it was written, but Sixx is on a 2-year farewell tour with Motley Crue, started his own successful band 6am, has his own clothing line, has his own radio show, and still writes and produces material for other artists. What's even more amazing is that Dennis Leary once said, "You could lock Motley Crue in a room with 2 tons of drugs, and they'd come out half an hour later going, 'Rock on, man.'" Sure enough, all 4 original members are circling the globe as you read this. Number 1. Al Jourgensen. When promoting his excellent book, Ministry: The Lost Gospels According to Al Jourgensen, Jourgensen admitted that he, in fact, died 3 times across the span of his lifetime. Seemingly each time he came back to life, he hated George Bush and Ministry bandmate Paul Barker more, and became more prolific at releasing material. Despite a high watermark in the early 90s, Ministry never went away, spewing industrial metal to a loyal fanbase. All Jourgensen's deaths were substance abuse related, and even though his friend and bandmate Mike Scacia died in 2012, Jourgensen plans on touring in support of 2013's From Beer to Eternity release. When discussing rock biographies, it's hard to top The Lost Gospels when it comes to amazing stories, whether it's Jourgensen's unlikely friendship with fellow junkie and author William S. Burroughs, where Jourgensen happened to be the night River Phoenix died, or his encounter with aliens as a child. He uses brutal candor when talking about the quality of some of his releases, the 13 proper Ministry albums, the half-dozen live albums, the remixes, the side projects, the compilations, producer credits, and the time he dated Amy Mann from Till Tuesday. Oh, and he seems to have a healthy disdain for music writers. It's a safe bet he would hate this video. So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and I'd love to know what you think of it, so please leave a comment below. I'm also going to link over to another video that you might enjoy, so just click on that thumbnail on the screen now, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we put out a new video 7 days a week, and you can also visit us online. Just go to TopTenz.net. Thanks for watching.